This is a production of PBS Charlotte.
Charlotte Mecklenburg Schools answers questions about two recent fires on school buses. The Mecklenburg County Health Director makes a controversial comment regarding Charlotte's high HIV rate. And does Mecklenburg County GOP need an overhaul? Those topics and more next on Off the Record. Good evening, and thanks for joining us. I'm Jeff Rivenbark, and welcome to Off the Record. In the next half hour, we'll look at some of the stories and the headlines this week. But first, I'd like to introduce our guest. We have Eli Portillo with the Charlotte Observer, Andrew Dunn with the Charlotte Agenda, David Borax with WFAE, and veteran broadcaster B. Thompson. Welcome, everybody. Glad to have you here. Well, another Charlotte Mecklenburg school bus caught fire on Tuesday. Now, fortunately, no one was hurt. But just 4 weeks ago, another school bus loaded with students caught fire. Both were Thomas-built buses. Now, school leaders told the media on Wednesday they are investigating the cause of these fires and inspecting more than 250 buses in the bus fleet. What do you think's going on here? Have they yet said if this is mechanical or if they think somebody was tampering with this, or is it still out?
Well, remember, initially, I think the first time they said that they thought maybe there was some maintenance issues with it. Now that we've had a second bus, same make and model, I think it shifts the focus a little bit to, is there something wrong with the buses? And they have said this week that they're going to be looking into this and that the manufacturer, Freightliner, will be involved in any review of what's going on here. So I think we're not sure yet.
And it has to be causing a lot of concerns, I would imagine, for parents, wondering, do my kids ride on this bus?
Well, I think parents are concerned anything that says there's a possibility of a bigger picture going on here. And when you're putting your child in somebody else's care to get them from point A to point B, you expect them to get there safely. But at the same time, I think they've been proactive in letting parents know that it's not all the buses in the fleet. There are certain buses. We've identified which buses those are. And just like anyone else, you can have problems with your vehicle. The problem here is you've got everybody else's cargo, which is their loved children on board. So staying on top of this and making sure parents feel comfortable about it, because you're a public entity and people tell us what's going on.
And certainly when we see the images of the fire, on those buses, that's very unsettling for any of us, whether you have kids or not.
Yeah, I've got a second grader. I mean, it's definitely a hot topic, and that's very dramatic. And it's been troubling that, CMS doesn't quite have a handle on what's going on. I think they're also looking into the possibility that tampering may be involved. I think they're trying to keep an eye out on the bus parking lots. But I'm also hearing that the troubles with CMS transportation might go a little bit deeper. I mean, there's been reports that CMS is in need of more mechanics, that they can't get mechanics out to all the buses when they need to.
And that's another big issue. Eli?
I think it's important to note that even though these images are scary and it's certainly a frightening topic, the most dangerous thing each of us do statistically every day is get in our personal vehicles and drive from point A to point B. The fatal accidents that we've had that have involved parents and kids, they've been in personal vehicles, and it could actually, you could make an argument, even be more dangerous if people were to pull their kids off buses and everybody started driving, because that's just much more likely to get into a serious accident with injuries.
This is the last thing that CMS needs. It's already hard enough to get parents to put their kids on the buses, at least in some parts of the CMS district. There's the early hours that some kids have to get on the buses. There's the long rides, and now we have safety issues as well. I think CMS needs to do more to promote the idea of riding the bus and counteract some of these negative ideas that folks have.
Well, another story that got lots of attention this week involved a comment Mecklenburg County Health Director Gibby Harris made regarding Charlotte's high HIV rate. She was recorded saying it can be a party town. It can be a place where people come in, enjoy themselves for the weekend, and then leave stuff behind. Now, this week, critics have condemned Harris's comment, saying it promotes stereotypes and stigmas that people who get HIV are sexually promiscuous. What are your thoughts around Gibby Harris's comments? Now, and I do also want to point out that later this week, she apologized for her comments, but a lot of people were very upset this week over what was said initially.
Well, I think the characterization of it, we've been dealing with HIV and AIDS since about 81. So we are one generation past where we were in the beginning, and everyone was aware and very frightened because they didn't know how it started or how you would get it. 20-some, 30-some years down the road, people have gotten a little more lax about it. And I don't know if that's because there's a generation that thinks, well, there's still people living with it. And if that adds to an attitude or people's approach to it, they're not as concerned about it. People may have been thrown off by her comments, but at the same time, there's an issue there that needs to be dealt with, and not just in colloquial terms. What's the reality of what we're doing and the numbers we're seeing? And Mecklenburg County has had the highest rates, not only for HIV, but we're talking about for syphilis and sexually transmitted diseases. So consider all of those elements and know that don't just talk about what she said, talk about what we need to be doing at this point so that those numbers don't continue to go up.
And I think that's the point. WCNC interviewed Debbie Warren this week, and she's the founder and executive director of RAIN, and she said, we aren't talking about it. We aren't talking about the impact. Here in our office, Debbie Warren says, we see grandmothers, mothers, brothers, and sisters. So hopefully maybe this will open up more of a dialogue on what are we doing and what do we need to be doing more of to try to combat this.
Because I don't think most people realize among baby boomers, a lot of people got married when they were young, went through divorce, maybe in their 40s or 50s. Now they're back out there dating again. They never really had any close intimacy with HIV or even considered that would be something on their scope. Now it is. So it is true. You're seeing grandparents who are coming and who are positive for HIV. So look at the demographics, look at the numbers. The bigger statistics may be one group, but the growing statistic is the rest of us who are still at possible risk.
And I think it's also important to note the context of this comment. The Mecklenburg County Health Department is coming off a very big black eye with their mishandling of Pap smear tests and not notifying people who are predominantly poor women of color of suspicious results that could indicate cervical cancer or the possibility of developing that. So really this new director has a very tight spotlight on her right now.
It was interesting also, too, in the WCNC report, there was a quote from County Commissioner Vilma Leak. She agrees that more needs to be done. She said, I've been wearing this red ribbon I have here for almost 30 years daily because I have a son who died of AIDS. And she was very passionate. She was fighting back tears. And she went on to say, this has not been a priority for Mecklenburg County at all. What are your thoughts on that?
It hasn't been. She's not the only one. We had another county commissioner who had a child who died. And they were both on the forefront of saying, we need to talk about this since the health department falls under the county commissions, what they're supposed to be doing. We don't talk about it. And I liken it almost to, the fact that we say now we have an opioid epidemic in America. Well, it became an epidemic when it started affecting people other than people who were brown, other than black people. Because before it was like they're just addicts, throw them in jail. Now it's an opioid epidemic because it's hitting middle America and places that never had this to happen before. It's an epidemic. We've got to save our children. Now you think it's an epidemic? Same with HIV and AIDS. As long as it was affecting someone who wasn't in your neighborhood, wasn't a problem. It wasn't an epidemic. But these are epidemics that affect Americans. So don't think in terms of it's their neighborhood or their neighborhood. It's not my family. It's our whole family that's being impacted. So you got to look at that the same way that now eyes are being turned on opioid overuse.
Well, now that the dust has settled following last week's general election, lots of folks have questioned the future of the Republican Party in Charlotte. In this week's Charlotte Agenda, Andrew, I know that you wrote about this extensively, and you interviewed Republican political consultant Larry Shaheen, who said, I'm going to focus on the towns and I'm going to focus on our legislature, and the real battles are in the suburbs. What were some of the other things that you wanted to bring out in this article?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, Republicans have known they've been in a tough spot for a number of years now. Just when you look at the voter profile, 44% of Mecklenburg County voters are registered Democrats compared to only 21% registered Republicans, with the balance being mostly unaffiliated. So it wasn't a huge surprise, that Republican candidate Kennedy Smith lost and the at-large candidates lost as well. But I think what was surprising was just the margin of victory. The past couple election cycles, the votes have been fairly close. And this year, the expectation was that it would again be fairly close, and it just wasn't. So that's kind of forced the Mecklenburg County Republican Party to take a hard look and say, well, do we just give up, or do we try to do a rebrand and refresh our message?
It was interesting. You also had a quote from former Charlotte Mayor Pro Tem Lynn Wheeler. She's Republican, of course. She weighed in saying, "I personally think the Republican Party in Charlotte is toast." Would you agree with her?
I'm not sure where she was coming from on that, whether she was referring to the organization or lack of organization, or just the fact that the demographics now point to extreme difficulty for a Republican winning a citywide office. So I'm not sure what she meant by that.
So we were talking earlier, though, before the show about how the Republican Party really has to figure out, are we going to toe the line on some of the issues that we've, advocated for in the past? Or are we going to be a little bit more moderate, maybe here in Charlotte? Can they be more moderate here in Charlotte in the face of the more conservative Republican statewide party?
Well, it's difficult to separate yourself totally from a legislature which has powerful members from the Charlotte suburbs and outlying communities who are much more conservative than the city at large, and of course from the national politics with Trump and all the down ticket effects from that. So to really work in Charlotte as a moderate party, the Republicans would have to, in some way, sever themselves or disassociate themselves from the statewide Republican Party and the national figures, which is a very difficult thing to do because those folks really drive the agenda nationally, which I think has sucked up a lot more attention than local politics in recent years.
And
Go ahead.
oh, I was going to say, from that national scope, we are starting to see the blowback from what's happening because, and I think the trickle-down effect is going to be seen next year with the off-year elections. People around this country are saying, oh my goodness, nationally, what's going on to America? What's the image we're sending internationally? Now, that may be the big picture, but locally is where they're going to start casting how they feel about what's happening nationally. And I think we're starting to see that now because people are just, from what I'm hearing and conversations with people, they're not happy with the national, but they also know your effect is more so locally. So they're making those changes locally. And I think we'll see it when you see the elections in 2018 with House representatives. We may see changes there as well. But I would like to say this. Republicans, don't write off someone who looks like me. Don't write off women. Don't write off minorities. Don't think that you don't have a chance. But what you are saying right now, you're not writing us off, you're turning us off. That's not to say I wouldn't vote for a Republican, because I have, locally. And it was because that was a good candidate, and that was someone that spoke to issues that made sense to me. When I was younger, you may have thought I thought one particular way. I'm a baby boomer who's getting older. I look at issues that impact me and my family. So for one party to automatically assume that I'm going to toe somebody's line without thinking about how it impacts me means that you really didn't want me as a voter. So why should I pay attention to you? Because you're not paying attention to no more than what your core voting audience is. And you got to change that.
I'm interested in Larry Shaheen's comment about I'm going to work in the suburbs. I think we could ask a similar question about Democratic Party in the suburban areas of Charlotte. And this is a demographic thing. You know, we choose to live where we live. The cities are becoming bluer and the suburban areas are becoming more red. And I live in North Mecklenburg, and the state representatives up there are all Republicans. And we've had some somewhat close elections, but it doesn't look like there's a chance for Democrats to win any of those seats. And, you know, I think the same question can be asked there. And I am seeing in this election, Democratic Party starting to organize at the precinct level around Mecklenburg County. I will be very interested to see what happens next year when they have a shot at some of these races.
And I think we've absolutely seen the impact of those national dynamics here locally this year. This year in the city council election, we had an unprecedented number of people in their 20s and 30s running for office. And when I talked to them, almost all of them said they were energized by the 2016 elections and they felt like they needed to get involved in politics. And when you look at the voter turnout in these municipal elections, which are usually pretty low, I mean, the number of voters who came out was significantly higher than anybody expected. And a lot of political insiders are saying they think it could be the Trump effect.
And I think what the Mecklenburg County Republican Party probably has to worry about going forward is maintaining some kind of bench of candidates and maintaining the funding to field candidates effectively in Charlotte, because Kenny Smith raised more than $500,000 for this race, a huge amount of money for the Charlotte mayor's race. They fielded a good slate of at-large candidates who they thought had a chance to take maybe one of those seats, and they got trounced. So how do you keep convincing people to put their name on the ballot, put in the time it takes to run? How do you keep convincing good, competent candidates who can go out and fundraise? And how do you convince those fundraisers to give you money when the results you can point to seem like banging your head against the wall? So do they wither up that way? That's a concern.
And I think you made a really good point, Andrew, in your article about how they need to focus on the two candidates that they now have on the city council. I mean, that's critical right now, right? You don't want to lose that foothold.
Right. Well, Republicans have held city council districts 6 and 7 for a number of years now, and the margins keep getting smaller and smaller. And when you look at the precinct level data, you're seeing that Democrats are slowly but surely gaining ground there.
Well, another story this week, Ray Carruth is the former Carolina Panthers player who was convicted of conspiring to kill his pregnant girlfriend, Sherika Adams. Their son, Chancellor Lee Adams, celebrated his 18th birthday this week. He has been raised by his grandmother, Sandra Adams. Now, the murder, the trial, which lasted 4 years, and stories about Chancellor and his grandmother and their journey to forgive Carruth have captivated many of us for years. And B, I want to start off with you. Why have we been so drawn to the story, and what is it about this story that continues to interest us? I know that this week, Channel 9, on Thursday, Erica Bryan, I think, had an excellent story.
She did an extensive piece on
And then
it.
Scott Fowler also had a story yesterday in the Charlotte Observer. So what is it about this story that just continues to draw us in?
I think the biggest part of it is here is a child who must live with the mistakes that were made by his parents. And I think people identify with children because a child is the most innocent among us. They've done nothing to deserve what may have happened in their lives, but they must continue to live. And I think a big part of this is the fact that Sandra Adams, having lost her daughter, Sherika, and then having one grandchild, that's the only grandchild she's going to have, to hold on to any anger that she had against the child, because all of you who were in the Charlotte area and saw pictures of Ray Carruth and the fact that here was a guy, the Panthers were just getting started, and this was a great young kid coming from the West Coast, and it was going to make it great for the team, and good-looking kid, and this is going to be wonderful, and then all of a sudden, bam, did he get caught up with the wrong crowd and these people are telling him to do this, or did he start this on his own? Did his mother tell him, you don't need to have another child, this is going to be more child support, you need to tell her to get rid of that child? That was all a part of this as well. But in the end, the child is here. And the two people who created that child are not in his life right now. He will never see his mother. There is still question as to whether he'll ever meet his father. That's something his grandmother wants. But what she has done has been to change within herself in order to support and care for a child who right now has no mother, no father. So I think the story is also about the mother, and it's about the child who still rises, who still is here, who still has a life that's worth living. What's the hope? Will he ever get a chance to meet his father? Will his father acknowledge this young man who looks just like him? In my community, sometimes you look at a child and say, boy, you couldn't deny him if you wanted to. He looked just like you spit him out. Because you did. And that's your son. So what happens now? There's still been a lot of support for Chancellor Lee and for Sandra. A new home that they have that makes it more amenable for them. And this grandmother, in her great wisdom, has already thought about what happens when I'm not here to care for my grandchild? And she's made provisions for that other family members would step in and take care of Chancellor. But the story's not over, because this young man is still alive.
Again, I want to mention Scott Fowler's story. If you get the chance to read it, you really should. In it, he says, he quotes Sandra Adams saying, "Forgiveness is for me. It's so I can live unconditionally, and I think my grandson deserves unconditional love because that's what he gives. It's total unconditional love. If I did not forgive Ray, it would block that flow. So many times, parents hold animosity toward one of the other parents, and they take it out subconsciously on the children. I never wanted that to happen."
Yeah.
That's pretty powerful.
I think that it is, and I think it's a lesson for a lot of people to learn, because you think about it. If he did not have that strong grandmother, where would Chancellor Lee be now? He might be in a home somewhere where he's just being cared for, or the state looks after him. But what he has is an angel by his side. It's called his grandmama, and it's a good thing she's there.
Any other thoughts from anybody?
Well, from an outsider's perspective, excuse me, I was in Washington, D.C. when this happened and didn't learn about it actually really until I moved to Charlotte. I was a kid and I might have been vaguely aware of what was happening, but when I moved here, it was one of the sort of foundational stories that I was quickly introduced to understand Charlotte. And I think for a lot of people who have moved here in recent years, growing the city's population, it's really one of the things that they've learned about and follow on part of their journey to learning about the city. So I see it as a story that really, for me, helped me become a Charlottean learning about it and explained a lot of the city to me. And I think that's another reason it has such draws. It's one of the city's most tragic and compelling stories, and a lot of folks who were not here at the time have really become intensely interested in it as well.
Well, moving on, roasted turkey, green bean casserole, and pumpkin pie. That usually means one thing, Thanksgiving. It's a time where Americans gorge themselves on food, but that's not the case for every one of us or a lot of our neighbors, even here in the Charlotte area. This week, Loaves and Fishes, which is Mecklenburg County's network of food pantries, said they will likely serve as many as 3,000 people leading up to the holiday, and that's about a 14% increase, or about 77,000 people. And listen to this, nearly half of them are children. What are your thoughts around this? We've heard a lot the last couple of years about upward mobility, and again, we think about festivities and gatherings around the table we'll be having this week with our loved ones. But not everyone right here in our community are as blessed as we may be.
Yeah.
Jeff, if it's another reminder of there is a population in Charlotte that is invisible, and you can drive down our boulevards and go past our shopping malls, and you will not see this population, but it's there and it's growing. And it's growing because people are moving here. It's growing because the city is changing. And the interesting thing that we learned this week is that the Loaves and Fishes is thinking ahead on where they need to be, and they're expanding into areas that they weren't before, like West and Northwest Charlotte, where there's a growing population that has the need of their services. And I started covering Loaves and Fishes back during the Depression or the recession, 2008 or so, and they saw unprecedented demand. And the numbers are higher today, and it's just another sign that there is this population there.
And I think one number or two numbers really explain this. $785, that was what the median rent in Charlotte was about 5 years ago. Now it's about $1,115. That's a big increase. Wages have not kept up with that, and that means that there are a lot more people who are struggling to make those basic needs met, and a lot more has to be sacrificed, and a big Thanksgiving meal might be part of something that these folks who are squeezed by rising rents simply can't afford.
And if you look at it, where they're opening new pantries is exactly where the working poor live, because most of these folks are having to spend their money just to make sure they keep a roof over their heads. Then you figure out what we got left to eat. So the pantries are making that difference up for these families, but that doesn't change the fact that their costs keep going up. And at some point, pantries aren't going to be able to meet all of that need, simply because people need to have the money in their pockets to meet their own needs.
And I think we should pair this story up with another one that we've been covering, which is a consultant's report recently that showed that the amount of affordable housing in Charlotte is actually that the most need is at the lowest end. And rents are rising for everybody, but they're really hitting people who can't afford $500 a month. And so pair that together with the fact that people are spending more on rent and they need this. There are lots of problems facing this community.
Loaves and Fishes director Tina Postel told WBTV this week, here's a quote, "We need to think about hungry people and rise to the occasion. What the data shows us is that despite our overall healthy economy and rapid growth in Charlotte, we are seeing a spike in need for those individuals and families stuck in lower income brackets." How very true.
Charlotte is a rapidly growing city, and a lot of times we just think about the young professionals moving in, with highly educated, with high-powered jobs, but there's also a lot of people in the lower income bracket who are moving to Charlotte for jobs and opportunities. So, as the community grows, so does our need to take care of our residents.
Certainly. Well, an all-new Carolina Impact comes your way Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Reporter Jeff Sonnier will take us to McAdenville to see the world-famous light show that's been going on for generations. Suzanne Stevens visits with restaurateur Frank Schiavelli to learn about his recipe for success. And B. Thompson, you've got a story about a local trailblazer.
T.D. Elder. If you know T.D., you know that she has been a mover and shaker in this community for a long time. But what you didn't know was this black woman walked a path by herself in integrating public health and making sure everybody was healthy. You gotta hear how TD did it on this Trailblazer.
And before we go, real quickly around the table, one thing you're thankful for this Thanksgiving holiday.
I was going to say our vibrant local media scene, but then I realized I also need to include my wife. But then I realized she's a part of our vibrant local media scene.
All right.
So I'm sticking with that.
Okay, Andrew.
Well, for me, a year ago at this time, we were finding out that our unborn daughter was going to need emergency surgery, and now she's happy, healthy, about to turn 1. So I'm just so blessed and grateful for that.
Great, awesome.
I
David?
got a media-related answer also. I am thankful that at my age, 58, to still be working in the media. Many of my peers of my age have had to drop out or they've gone to higher-paying jobs elsewhere, but I've been able to stay in it.
And B?
I'm thankful that I finally realized that I should always be grateful.
And I guess I would have to say thankful for a job that allows us to interact with you folks and also tell really exciting stories about people that live here in this area. We also want to brag a little bit. We recently received the Radio Television Digital News Association of the Carolinas an award for first place in education, first place in general news, and second place in photography. And then just a Thursday night, the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, the Nashville chapter, announced their nominations, and we have received a nomination in the magazine program category for Carolina Impact, for our Destination Cuba story, and also for community service for our Cyber Chase Step It Up Challenge. So good things to come. Hopefully we will bring home some trophies in January. We'll keep our fingers crossed. That's all the time we have this week. Once again, I want to say thanks to our guests. We have Eli Portillo with the Charlotte Observer, Andrew Dunn with Charlotte Agenda, David Borax with WFAE, and veteran broadcaster B. Thompson. I'm Jeff Rivenbark. Off the Record will return in December. From all of us at PBS Charlotte, thanks for watching and happy Thanksgiving.
A production of PBS Charlotte.